What's going on, Omnibuddies? Mitch here, and today we are doing an Omnibuddy overview. What are we looking at? We are looking at Mark Russell's The Flintstones. All right, so if you have not heard of this book, it's a DC book. It's by DC, written by Mark Russell and art by Steve. I'm gonna try and get this name. Pugh? P-U-G-H. I'm so sorry if you're watching this video. I doubt you are, but Steve. Art by Steve. Yeah, so we are gonna dive into this book. I had heard so much about this book. It's a Hanna-Barbera series, and I was born in '85, and so I grew up watching this cartoon as a kid so much, and I absolutely loved watching the Flintstones. So when I saw and heard so much about a Flintstones comic, I was like, oh, it's probably just, like a kid's comic. They do all these little, they're not for adults or anything like that. The classic, comics aren't for grown-ups, they're for kids or something like that. But which we all know is totally untrue, but I thought it was written for a lot younger of a age demographic. Boy, was I wrong. When I dug into this, I could not stop reading it. It was insane. So actually, let's just get this down onto the table, take a look at it, and see why this book is so great. All right, here is The Flintstones by Mark Russell. This is a DC comic, so here is the cover. Super nice glossy dust jacket. Here's the spine, and here is the back cover. Trying not to get too much glare on there. Got, end sheets are pretty much just his Fred's not costume. I don't know, his clothes, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, yeah, so let's get into it. So this is deluxe edition, hard size. How much is this retail for? What was it? Yeah, $50 USD. So you can probably get it cheap. I think it's about 35 or something like that at most online retailers. So we got a few different artists in here. This is all written by Mark Russell. And it's got a really nice foreword in here, which I would definitely say do not skip. It was not a foreword, an introduction. Generally, I totally skip these, especially because some of them kind of spoil stuff. So I very half-heartedly read these, and then usually end up stopping a paragraph or two in because I don't want anything spoiled. But this did a really nice job setting up his whole process and idea behind the book. So definitely doesn't spoil anything, but very cool to go into the book knowing this, and that he had written one 12-issue series before and it got canceled at, I believe, issue 6, and then this was his second attempt and he got given another 12 issues like the last time, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to make sure it can end at issue 6 in case I get canceled halfway through again. Or if I make it all the way through, I will say everything I've ever wanted to say in comics in this book, and hope for the best. And he really did do a great job with it. I cannot believe I'm actually doing an overview of a Flintstones comic. It's so crazy. Anyways, starts off present age, which kind of threw me off a little bit, but they do some really good kind of jokes and play on museums and things like that, and then they just jump right into it, and with the slate quarry and basically the town of Bedrock 100,000 years ago. That's what it is, 100,000 years ago, not 10,000. And all these huge splash pages, and when you're looking at just the backgrounds of panels and things, they have some absolutely hilarious just play on words and things. What is this? Starbucks coffee, Plato's Cave, Homo erectus, just tar pit instead of target. Just some really clever play on words and puns. And as a dad, I love puns, so leave me alone. And then they just get right into it with life in Bedrock and dealing with all kinds of things from your boss and veterans and PTSD, and they get really into it. And they get really into the thick of it, and they don't, Mark Russell does not pull any punches in this book with all the issues. I mean, there's 12 issues in this book, and each issue highlights something a little different, whether it's war, democracy, the institution of marriage as a whole, as it relates to, monogamy versus, just open marriage, or if marriage is even a good institution. Very much gets into art and consumerism, and so I think this is the consumerism one. It's buyer beware, which I love that they just call everything crap. Just buy crap, and they just call it what it is and get right into it. I love the inventiveness of, they got a giant octopus as a dishwasher. He's got a power goat that, mows his lawn. And what's crazy to me is you read this story and it's got all this, I wouldn't even call it subtext, because it's all right there in your face on the issues that Mark Russell is approaching and talking about and diving deep into. But a lot of times there are these subplots with the appliances. The one that really pops into my mind is bowling ball and vacuum cleaner, which, there's an elephant that is their vacuum cleaner, and they have a bowling ball, which if you've watched the cartoon, his bowling ball is an armadillo, and dealing with his animals when they put him to this, put the vacuum cleaner in the closet. Well, what happens to a vacuum cleaner in the closet when the vacuum cleaner is alive and it's in the dark by itself all the time? So some really interesting things when dealing with job loss and tough days at work for our characters like Fred and Barney and all of them. But then it's also following the subplot of the appliances having a really crappy day and those subplots. So super interesting stuff with that. And I think those actually have hit a lot harder, because you're watching the, Fred and Wilma and all of them go through these issues, and struggle through them, but then you're watching them do the same thing to their appliances. They're treating their workers like crap when they're being treated like crap, and it's got some interesting play on it, and really, just sits with you for a while. Some very cool stuff with, aliens and futurism, and, are they the future? Are they the past? That kind of thing. And what are they really doing with their lives, and is it really worth it? Poor guy. But some really cool stuff in here. And then the last issue is actually a very fun Booster Gold. I'll jump to it really quick. Let's see. I gotta say though, the art is super cool. And there's Bowling Ball. Love them. The art is super well done. Fits the story so well. Really just fantastic colors and fantastic line work, and everything's got a little bit of a gritty old feel to it. Not super deep on, like, there's color shading and all that, but it's not like really finessed. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but it works really well for the stories that they're telling. Here we go, the last one, which is Booster Gold, and obviously he ends up going back in time, and Fred and Barney and the whole gang end up having to help him and make sure that all the world survives and all that. So super cool stuff. I haven't really read much Booster Gold before, so that was actually, I think, one of my first introductions to him. So there's that. But it was fun. Super interesting character. I would not mind getting to know a little bit more And then they got a fair amount of like cover gallery stuff in here, which is cool. Let's flip through it. Need sound effects, obviously, and then the early concept designs, which is, oh man, interesting. Character studies, Bam Bam and Pebbles. Oh man, some really cool stuff in here. I definitely want to reread this one again sometime soon, and this is definitely a book I'll push other people to read, because I think it's got some interesting discussion and and it's relatively thought-provoking. Yeah, this is one, like I was talking about, reading the signs for the stores and the sales signs in the backgrounds of the panels, but definitely like there's, when there's picketing or anytime there's text in the background, you do want to stop and read it, because there's some gems in there. There's some really funny stuff in there. Some pencils and inks and some process pieces. Really appreciate when they include that stuff, and then some about the creators in here, and that is really it. And that's a quick overview of the Flintstones Deluxe Edition by Mark Russell. All right, so that's a quick overview of Mark Russell's The Flintstones. Like I said, the art was so cool. The art stayed the same style, but like when they do flashbacks or like weird cartoony things like that, they in a couple of the panels, they went back to the like old school Flintstones cartoons. Such a cool callback. This book was just so creative in how it took these, what is it, like 10,000 BC or something, like just like crazy long time ago. And, they do the town of Bedrock and everything's super old school, but they also do it as, they make everything sort of current, but, with old school stuff. Super creative, super cool. I loved taking my time on those big splash panels and just reading all the different signs and all the like just different like logos and businesses, and just super creative stuff on what you'd see around there, Bedrock, Bath and Beyond, and all these play on all these businesses. Such a cool thing like that. But yeah, then, the overall plot was pretty good and pretty cool. Had a lot of cool, like in the introduction, Mark Russell talks about how he wasn't sure if he was going to ever get to write another comic book again. So he just threw everything into this comic that he wanted to say in comics. So he threw it all into these 12 issues, and boy, did it show. And he hit on a lot of different topics, a lot of different social issues, and really knocked it out of the park. Whether you agree with what he's saying or not isn't really the question. In my mind, I read a lot from creators I don't necessarily agree with, but that's not a bad thing to read stuff from creators you don't necessarily agree with. You might have issues, there's a whole other discussion of giving creators that you don't agree with and don't want to encourage or something, you don't want to pay them. But so there's always the secondary market where you can get something from someone who's selling it on the secondary market, who's not going to keep it anymore. I sell books all the time. So that's a great way to get books that you might not agree with. But in any fact, not that I didn't agree with much of anything that, I agreed with a ton of what he was saying in this book. But even if you don't agree with what like a creator like Mark Russell's saying, it's always great to look at the opposite perspective and see what they're thinking, and see the issue from someone else's perspective, and try and understand it so you can try and understand your position better. That's my position. Maybe you're totally different. You just, if you don't agree, you don't, whatever. Anyways, let's not get too much into that. But I gotta say, I really love this book. It took me by surprise, and I thought, this is a great book for Gen X, very early millennials, zennials, which is kind of where I fall, zennial, very early millennial. Great book to share with your friends, because it's, just a one-off. It's a pretty quick read. It's not too crazy long or anything like that. Great book to share around, especially because it's not, at least right now, it's not out of print or anything like that, or hard to find. So, maybe I'll pick up a second copy so I can just loan it out to people, because I thought it was a really cool way of doing a lot of social commentary through a very approachable cartoon that so many of us are familiar with. Anyways, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to pick this book up, as of now, it's on our channel sponsors page, organicpricebooks.com. You can use code Omnibuddy for $2 off every order. If you're picking up more than 2 books, if you're picking up 3 or more books all at the same time, you could use code Omnibuddy, ship it together, all one word, and you can save 5% off your entire order, which is just awesome. Be careful if you're pre-ordering books, because if they're not coming out at the same time, you could be waiting a long time for your 2 other books for that pre-order to come out, because they're all shipping together. So if they're all in stock, use that code Omnibuddy, ship it together, save a bunch of money, support a small business, support this channel. You get a great book, great books, great book. You get great customer service. Everyone wins. Anyways, that's it. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, do all those things. But of course, comment. What is one book that really took you by surprise that you had no idea would be as good as the hype hyped it up to be, as people hyped it up to be? What's that one book that you're like, there's no way it could actually stand up to all the hype? And it totally did. Let me know in the comments. That's it. Hope you're awesome. Take care. Stay cool.